Hi ladies, welcome back to Mind Your Comida. I'm your host, Rosemary. Today you'll be learning 2 desserts that are low in refined sugar and gluten-free that I've been doing for the past couple of years that have helped me significantly reduce bloating and also satisfy that sweet tooth or that sweet urge that I might have. You can eat these for breakfast. I usually accompany them with some type of protein like a boiled egg and some fruit and coffee, or a really spicy type of tea like chai tea or something with a lot of herbs in it. One thing to have in mind is that I'm really used to not eating sugar for the past several years. So I've adapted my taste buds to really not sugary things. This is one of the reasons why I don't like to eat a lot of desserts and sugar out of the ones that I bake, because I just find them so sweet. So you'll see that I don't add sugar. I usually use some type of fruit like banana, really ripe bananas, or dates, or the same juice of the fruit that I'm using, sometimes even raisins. And if I want to add something sweeter, and you're gonna see that in one of the recipes, I just add and sprinkle on top some sugar. Usually it's some brown sugar or honey, and I adapted to how sweet I want it that day that I'm gonna eat it. Another thing that you're gonna see is that I don't use eggs or butter in any of these recipes, and it's because in the past I used to be vegan and I didn't use eggs, so I just learned how to make recipes without them. And sometimes, depending on the recipe that I'm making, if I want to add them, I do, but usually I know what other ingredients substitute eggs that help that recipe rise, like with the cookies or with cakes or with brownies. I use more baking powder and baking soda. Sometimes I use baking powder and vinegar, and it helps it give that airy texture. If I do have eggs, I add eggs, but it just makes it easier and less messy. And if I also want to taste the batter in the process, I also know it's safe because it doesn't have eggs. This is what I talk about when I say use your senses. I use my sense of sight and touch to know what texture things need to be. You're gonna see that for these 2 recipes. One of them, it's a little bit more watery, but I do it in that consistency so that when the recipe comes out, it's a little bit more chewier. And then with the other recipe, the batter is really thick because I want that thickness of the brownie in there as well. I made these in about 15 to 20 minutes to prep both of these recipes, and then I baked one first and then the other one. And I do this because when you try to put one baking thing in the oven and then while that one's baking you try to put another one, that messes up the temperature inside of the oven. So I just do it one per one. If I'm gonna do both, then I finish one recipe in one of the batches and one of the bandejas, and then I do the other one, and then I put them in the oven together. But if you're going to make one first and then the other like I did, then just don't mess with the temperature. Just put one first, let that finish, take that out, and then put the other one. And while these bake, these have different times of baking, especially the brownie takes a little bit more time. But what I do in that time, as a busy person that I am, I just wash the dishes, I clean up, I play with my daughter, I talk with my husband, I do other things, I watch TV, I do other things while this is baking. So it doesn't have to be a hassle. If you have 15 to 20 minutes, you can make these 2 recipes, and then the other thing is wait, and you can do so many things while you wait for them, right? Without further ado, let's get into the recipes.
So the first recipe is cinnamon sugar apple chewy cookies. So these are really chewy in texture, but soft. They're so good. And they're also plus high in protein because they do have yogurt in them. So for the first step, you are going to grate a whole apple. And then, as you see here, you're gonna take all of that apple and exprimirlo. I don't know how to say that in English, but basically you're gonna take all the juice out of it. And honestly, what I did with this juice, I just drank it and half of it I use it for the other recipe as well. So after you grate the apple, you're gonna add either Greek yogurt or plant-based yogurt. I've used almond-based yogurt or plain yogurt, which is what I'm using now. Obviously, if it's Greek yogurt, your batter is going to be a little bit thicker, so you can leave a little bit more of the apple juice in there. Then once you add this into a bowl, you're also going to add some cinnamon. I love my cookies to actually taste like they have a lot of cinnamon in it. So I go wild with this, okay? Not to the point that it's like spicy, but to the point that I can actually taste like it has cinnamon in it. Then I'll add just a few spoons of sugar. I only added one here, but I added at the other point a little bit more. If you like it sweeter, you can add it, but because these are coated with sugar at the end, then I'm really mindful of the sugar here. Then I'll add, this is like half a spoon of baking powder, and for this to be gluten-free, I'm adding some oat flour. I've also done this with almond flour. It's not my favorite texture, to be honest, because almond flour is just literally like grated like almonds, so it doesn't absorb as much of the yogurt, so it's a little bit chewier. I like the texture with the oat flour batter. So I mixed it all up, and I'm going to be adding more oat flour accordingly because I want the texture to be thick. You don't want the texture to be watery like a pancake. You want this texture to be thick, like a cookie dough type of consistency. And also like a little bit watery than a cookie dough consistency. So you're going to see how it goes here. So I added some more oat flour, and this is the consistency. I think this is like cement consistency almost, but yeah, that's what you get. And then it's a little bit sticky. You can wet your hands when you make them into a ball. Because of the baking powder, I find that I just made them into these balls. I didn't have to push them down. No los tuve que aplastar. So they just grew a little bit more once they were cooked, and you're going to see that at the end too. So I ended up using like half a cup of yogurt and then like 2 cups of oat flour, and it yielded about 13 to 14 cookies. The oven preheated at 375, so they go in. They look so beautiful. About 12 to 14 minutes depending on your oven. So while that is baking, I'm going to make the second recipe, which is my sweet potato flour-free brownies. This is my favorite recipe ever. The other ones are my daughter's favorite, actually. She ate those up, and I ate these brownies up, by the way. So I just put this sweet potato in the microwave like during the day while I was working, and then I just put it in the fridge. And at night when I was going to use it, I just have it there. I peel it. It's pretty easy. You can boil it or, put it in the oven. I use the microwave for convenience, but you can use whatever you want to cook this. But it should be cooked all the way through, like fork tender. And you remember the juice from the apple. You're going to throw it in here because this is also going to give it a bit of sweetness. The sweet potatoes that I usually find, they are pretty sweet, so I don't add any other sugar to it. It just, again, depends on your taste buds if you do want to add more. Sometimes I add a really ripe banana in there, or just a little bit of honey or pure maple syrup. It really depends on your taste buds, but I like to feel the like dark chocolate, in this, like the bitterness of the chocolate. That's like my favorite. So you smash this sweet potato, mix it in with the juice of the apple. If you have a blender or a food processor, you can actually like put this in there, and it makes it into a really nice puree. Then what I did was add some almond butter. This is literally like the bottom, el fondo of almond butter that I had. And honestly, I loved how it came out because it was a little bit, estaba seco, like it was a little bit dry. But when I was eating the brownies, like having those little pieces of the nuttiness and the saltiness of the almond butter, oh my God. So I mixed it up. And I tried to incorporate it as much as I could here. Oh my God, but I just love that. Then I use a few seeds just honestly to get in like my seed cycling thing here. So flax seeds, some tahini for that sesame seeds. I also love like the bitterness, not that strong of the tahini that it adds to like this brownie. I love it. So I add like half a spoon, a full spoon of baking powder. And what this will do is will help it to grow for the brownie, to literally expand and grow. And then you add as much of cocoa or cacao powder that your heart desires until that becomes like the flour component in it. And for the texture of this brownie, you do want it more ooey gooey, so not so much like in the cement type of texture of the other one. I use these mini chocolate chips. I love it instead of the big ones. But also because these are already sweetened, like every time that I get a bite of them in the brownie, then it's just like a plus of that sweetness. See, like the texture is more cakey as well. So after you do this, you line a baking sheet with parchment paper and you'll add the batter in there. Just make sure that you spread it out really evenly and really nicely. I just use a spoon to like, lo pongo más plano arriba, to just like put it like this, like you're seeing on the video. I forget words in English and Spanish sometimes, sorry. But I use a spoon, and then I also incorporate some chocolate chips or walnuts. And this is how she looks ready for the oven. And now I can take out my other cookies and put the brownie inside the oven. So while that is cooking, I am making like a little, I don't know how to say this, it's not a sauce, it's just a drizzle that I put on top of the cookies. So I just add some cinnamon, some plant-based milk, like whatever you had. I just had like oat milk that day, and some brown sugar. I combine that as well as I can, and then I just put it on top of the hot cookies. You see how gorgeous and beautiful this is? I think with these I also added some sprinkled a bit of brown sugar on top because I tasted it and I wanted it to be sweeter. And yeah, those were really, really good. Here is like my genuine reaction. I know, like they are so delicious, but already cooled down, and I just have to show you the texture. Look at this. It is so good and so fudgy. Is to put them in glass containers, so every time that you open the fridge you see them and you actually want to eat them.
Let me know in the comments if you like these recipes, if you've made them before, or when you do make them, share them with me. I love to see it when you actually put this into action. And any other questions that you have about them, the temperature, the time, etc., just put them down in the comment section and I will answer those for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.